Cloud-first development helps your business move fast, but misconfigurations and blind spots are part of the deal. App and dev teams get the flexibility, while security teams are left with the stress of managing new risk using legacy workflows. ExtraHop RevealX provides cloud-native network detection and response, backed by cloud-scale machine learning that helps you spot threats and unify processes across hybrid environments. Learn more at extrahop.com/securityweekly. That's extrahop.com/securityweekly. Let the team at Black Hills Information Security test your defenses. With over 10 years of experience in penetration testing, red teaming, and threat hunting, the testers at Black Hills will help you find the holes in your security before the bad guys do. The team at Black Hills cares about educating and sharing their knowledge by creating countless blogs, open source tools, and webcasts for you to learn more about the tradecraft of pen testing and red teaming. Visit securityweekly.com/BHIS to join their mailing list and view the latest blogs and webcasts from Black Hills Information Security. Keep your company and products relevant, competitive, and reliable by standardizing your security framework to protect intellectual property, become a reliable business partner, and guard financial and customer information. Standards Connect is an online standards management solution from ANSI. It's standards access simplified. Standards Connect is a cost-saving, fully customizable solution for entrepreneurs and companies that spend $2,000 or more per year on standards and want to translate spend into a subscription model, want to simplify access, search, monitoring, and collaboration, or need a centralized hub of standards for multiple users at one or more locations. Get a free trial at securityweekly.com/ANSI. That's /ANSI.
Welcome back to Business Security Weekly. I am your host, Matt Alderman, joined by Paul Asadorian and Jason Albuquerque. Security Weekly will be at Hacker Halted in Atlanta, Georgia this October 10th and 11th. EC Council is offering our listeners a $100 discount to attend the two-day conference. Use discount code HH19SW when you register, or go to securityweekly.com/hackerhalted and register there. Make sure you check out the keynote, our very own Paul Asadorian and Mr. Jeff Mann's talk as well. We'll also be doing some recordings there as well. We'll get you more details on those soon. All right, gentlemen, let's dig into the leadership and communications articles for this week. And I start with the last of the 5-part series on trust. And I spent a lot of time on this article. We might actually spend a lot of time on this article in the conversation, is because this talks about a good apology, the elements of a good apology, why it's important. But they use the Boeing 737 MAX issue as the foundation for this article. And it kind of strikes me that even though they use it as an example, I don't think Boeing did it really well, which is why they still have some of the issues that they have. So
absolutely.
This talks about the elements. And so I want to kind of dig in this one a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those scenarios where, as an organization, this is a make it or break it moment, right? It's you do it right, or it could go really fast sideways.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. In the case of Boeing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
In this particular case, they came out with an apology, but it was a little late, and it was it wasn't sincere, I don't think, partially. And so what you did is you didn't reestablish trust. There was a lot of negative feedback from what they had announced. There was a lot of concerns about the safety of the 737 MAX. They ended up doing a second apology, which I still don't think has helped.
No.
No. I mean,
if you have to do a second apology, you're in for it. It's bad for everyone.
Exactly. And I mean, this is a situation where out of the gate, you're already coined as guilty, right? I mean, the magnitude of what happened, obviously the microscope's going to be on Boeing. So out of the gate, you have to do your best to do it right.
Yep.
Yeah, and this talks about the elements of what an apology should look like so that you can either regain or sustain trust. And again, when you're out in the public light, like a Boeing, you have an accident, you had 2 of them where people die. I mean, you got to take this very seriously. And the first thing is, understand what you're apologizing for, right? There was a malfunction, whether it was human error, mechanical error, a combination of both. Something went wrong and people died.
Right.
And so, you probably need to apologize. And then this article then kind of walks you through what are some of those different components you need to account for in that apology, which I don't think Boeing did.
This could be also double as marriage advice. Just saying.
True. Absolutely. I mean, in the beginning of the article, it actually goes through what makes a lot of communications not be successful. Right? They're crafted. They're statements that come out like a political rhetoric.
Do you even know what you're apologizing for?
Exactly, right? They're disingenuous. They're hollow. I mean, they used all these different words, right? But once you take that stance, it makes matters worse. When you take almost that attorney or political stance, where it's literally coming across as rhetoric, it's not gonna come across well, especially something in the magnitude of this nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly right. So they talk about, do we tell the truth, right? And it talks about being truthful.
Yeah.
Like sincerely be honest and talk about what went wrong.
Yeah.
Right? In this particular case, the Boeing example, right? There was an error, but nobody really got into the details about what went wrong. How did this potentially happen? What are they doing about it? To build confidence with their customers and the consumer base. They didn't come across that way. And so part of this article really talks about aspects of, one, be truthful, make sure that you talk about what went wrong, you acknowledge what information's coming out, you kind of want to get ahead of the media cycle a little bit because some more of this data is going to come out. So, get it out up front, make it out there.
But we've seen that with breaches too. If they're not completely forthcoming and more stuff comes to light, I mean, and sometimes they don't want to be for obvious reasons of security and there's still an investigation going on, and that's understandable. But oftentimes, like, more stuff comes out and you're like, why didn't you just say that in the first place? Like,
absolutely.
You go back through some of these breaches and you're like, wait, you knew about that.
Right.
And,
or at least proactively state the fact that there are certain things you can't talk about at the moment because there may be litigation or liability or
well, like in
those type of
Equifax's
things,
case,
right?
I think one of their executives at least was convicted of insider trading, right?
Yes. Yeah, because he was short selling the stock. So he knew that this had gone on.
That's the worst possible scenario.
Exactly.
It's just a horrible scenario.
Because you don't know. I mean, you can't keep tabs on everything an employee does. And like, even if you did, you're not, you need some evidence and that takes time, right? But we all read what's going on and we're like, they knew. And that's just going to look bad for your organization because employees made really bad decisions, right?
Right. They knew the breach was in. They started short selling stock to get rid of it before they went public. Just a horrible thing altogether.
Absolutely.
And then it talks about, on whose behalf are you acting, right? Think about the victims here, not necessarily you. So focus on them, not on you. You've got to have that empathy.
Yes.
Give as much detail as you can. Back to that point. Apologize quickly. Some of these places didn't do that right away. Boeing kind of didn't do anything right after the first accident for sure. And the second accident, they kind of delayed a little bit. And that put this really negative aspect into the public spotlight on, what's Boeing trying to hide, et cetera. And I think that gets really dangerous if you wait too long.
It's interesting because, and I'm sure you both do this too, like when you're leading a team, you just to be forthcoming, like when someone does make a mistake, like, look, first off, we're all going to make mistakes, right? Like that happens. Every single one of us, leadership included, we're all going to make mistakes. We're human. We're going to make mistakes. The second thing is, like, collect as much information about the mistake as possible and disseminate that to the team. Same thing in the public relations. Do the analysis of what happened. Now, in the larger ones, that does take time, which, as Matt's saying, right, can limit you. But, like,
but you can still proactively communicate that.
Absolutely.
We're in the middle of an investigation. It's going to
Here's
take time
what we
for us
know
to get
so
more.
far,
Exactly.
right? And we do that with our teams as well.
Right.
What do you know so far, right?
Yep.
And then look at how those things, like what led to these conditions occurring, right? And you don't want to place blame, but you want to have a list of things like, here's how we think this all happened, right? And this could be process, this could be people. In Equifax case, like, look, we had some unethical people on our team. Come out and say that, right? And there's, of course, technology, right? Like, with this happened that led to this, that, and the other thing. Now, I think the most important part of an apology, air quotes apology in this case, is be forthcoming about, based on all that, what are you going to do different, right? Or what have you already done differently? Which, when I've looked at some breach reports, they're like, we analyze the situation, here were the mistakes. And I love when it's broken out into 2 sections, right? Because you can't do everything all at once, right? It's here's what we've done so far to mitigate risk, both to prevent the bad things that happen in this breach and to prevent future things like this happening. Like, we've done these things. And by the way, in the future, here's the future project list that we're going to be working on to make sure that we don't make this mistake. You do the same thing every time something fails here. You do lessons learned, right? With sales, lessons learned. Why did we lose the deal, right?
Yep.
It happens. Let's talk about what possibly we can do in the future, right? And all of that, I just think, is not just for apologies, Matt and Jason, right? But for how you lead and run your business.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
how you
deal with situations that crop up. Look, basically shit happens, right? And
it's funny. I mean, they talk about the 3 different aspects of properly crafting a response, right? Those 3 questions: do we tell the truth? On whose behalf are we acting?
Right.
And how do our actions benefit those who trust us? Those are the 3. And I look at that and I say, going down the line, that really tells you something important about an organization's culture, right? Number 1, do you tell the truth? From my perspective, always. Just from having some integrity, right? At the end of the day, you're not going to walk in the door and lie, right? Unless you have ulterior motives. So from an integrity perspective,
trying to cover something up,
right? Now,
that
on whose behalf?
Trust.
Exactly. And whose behalf are we acting? Are we acting on the behalf of our clients, our constituents, the people we serve, or do you have ulterior motives on who you're, right? So coming through these questions, you'll tell a lot about the culture of an organization and how they react.
Yeah, and you'd love my segue right into this next article. Because that's why I put it right here. It's because are you enabling a toxic culture in your organization without realizing it, right? And look, I've had I've had some really interesting experiences on this one. And, this is it's a story of one of the leaders at Walmart, and the story goes. But I think this is really important for people to understand that there are 2 types of enablers here. You have passive and active. You have some people that don't realize the culture is shifting and need to be more visible in the organization to really look for it and try to squash it out. There's others that are active enablers. They know what's going on and they don't say anything. And I think that one gets really, really dangerous. I've seen this in the past, and it just creates these toxic environments where you lose trust in the organization with the leadership, and then you start seeing the mass exodus out the door on the other side. It's crazy.
And it's funny because you can have a combination of both throughout the hierarchies of an organization, right? And from the passive enabler side, I see this a lot with folks who have that driver personality, right? They're drivers, they're looking at metrics, they're looking at achievements that the organization has, and they're saying, wow, we're overall successful. We're driving results, we're driving customer satisfaction, we're driving whatever strategies and KPIs the organizations are running toward, and they're just naively trusting kind of that next level of leadership within their organization, saying, hey, we have results, so we must be doing something right, and they trust it, right? And at the end of the day, you really have to be that trust but verify leader in order to ensure that it's not just metrics we're driving to, it's satisfaction both client side and employee side, because that combination is what's going to make you successful.
Yeah, it's very important. And I've seen new leaders come into organizations and create just super toxic environments, and it's disastrous. And you've got to, and as an employee, right, if you're in the chain of command and you see it going on, you got to speak up.
Absolutely. Because
it has such an impact on the organization as a whole.
Yeah. And those active enablers are the folks who kind of see it. They see it happening, but they're hesitant to say anything, whether it be because of their role and their level within the department, or they just think someone else is gonna handle it, or someday my leader's gonna handle it, and they kind of just take that step away. And then you combine that with a passive leader, and now it's just a life cycle of toxicity, right?
I still make the statement, Paul. You either love me or you hate me, but you're always going to get the truth, and you're always going to get it.
You're going to know where you stand, right?
Exactly.
Those are the people we appreciate working with. Knowing
and that's
where you stand
philosophy.
Is big. Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. And this is something that has to happen, right?
Right.
But you're right, Jason. Some people aren't comfortable doing this.
Right.
I've always done this. My wife's always wondering, like, why are you changing jobs? I'm like, look, wrong place, wrong time.
Right.
I'll go find something else. It's all right.
And the article is great because it actually goes through both of those different leadership types and says, here are things you can do to be better as, if you're a passive leader, right? Have strategies where you're having one-on-ones with your team members. Do something simple as a walk around, right? I do this all the time, right? I start getting cross-eyed from staring at the screen for so long, and just in the day-to-day, I kind of break out of it, go walk around, see the team members, see other teams, see other business units, right? And kind of build that face-to-face relationship around the office. And it's amazing the things that you will hear through the grapevine or scuttlebutt or just things people want to vent about, in passing while you're going to the kitchen to grab a soda or something. It's
right,
just amazing.
It's that water cooler talk,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
If you're in the kitchen with the employees and you're getting your cup of coffee or whatever, you're having those conversations. Maybe, it's after work doing a little event, but you've got to be out in the environment, in the organization, and interacting with the rest of the employees and be open to listening to what's going on.
That's the key. Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's at the end of the day, you're building relationships. You're getting good intel from the organization and the folks within your organization. And also, the article pointed out, it's a great way to take that stress away from an employee to have to say, I need to go to HR to talk about this, right? Because that's a stressful type scenario for an employee to have. Wait a minute, I have to go to HR and talk about this culture problem that we're having. That's not an easy conversation or an easy thing to set up. So it kind of gives them that opportunity to not be as structured through an HR type process, but they can still vent if you're having those conversations.
HR struggles with this too. They have issues with this because they know that if it's going on and they're active enablers or passive enablers, they're primarily, I think, active enablers sometimes because they can see it going on because this stuff's bubbling up. But then it's hard for them as the HR department to address it with the senior leadership sometime. And I've seen that challenge and had lots of conversations with HR departments about aspects of this.
And at the end of the day, for the active enablers, it's one of those situations where you have to speak up, right? The voice has to come from somewhere because if no action, we've said this on the show, no action is still an action. And if you're not taking any type of proactive action, you're enabling it to happen. You're going to allow it to continue on and continue to happen. So see something, say something, I guess, right? And decide on how you want to do that. Do you want to do that in kind of a one-on-one scenario with your leader? If one of my employees came to me and said, "Hey, listen, I need an ad hoc one-on-one to chat," in a heartbeat, right? No matter what level within the organization, I want to have that conversation because I want that relationship and I want to know. But if somebody grabbed me at the water cooler conversation as well and kind of planted a seed, it's my job now to take that seed and run with it, right?
Right. Agreed. The third article from Harvard Business Review, I'm heavy on HBR this week for some reason, I don't know why, is the 8 ways leaders delegate. Anybody who is looking for good leadership advice and reads, there are references to a ton of books and articles in here. This thing is just littered with cross-references to lots of great books for leaders to do. But where I wanted to focus this on is some of the ways people successfully delegate, right? What are some of those key areas? Because one of the studies showed that businesses that delegate effectively do better from a business perspective, better growth, better revenue, better just across the board. And so I thought it would be good to cover some of these key areas.
It becomes a force multiplier, right? Now you have people out there actually doing more of the business for you. And it allows you as a leader to concentrate on strategic things or get the run off your plate or whatever the case may be. You create this force multiplier across the
So Paul and I do this pretty much every day. Right? Because Paul's got his set of things he's got to do. Yep. I've got my set of things. And then there's others that get delegated down tasks, right? That's right. And that leads to number one. You got to pick the right person, right?
Yes.
In Paul chose me to come over and help run the business with him because we trust each other, right? Back to our whole trust relationship. Right. But we know our swim lanes primarily. Now, we can cross over those swim lanes when we have to. I'm on vacation. Paul's on vacation. We'll cover vacation in the next article. But you've got to pick the right person that you trust to delegate to. And that's number one.
You know what's interesting, Matt? Over time, I think we've developed even better rapport. And like when we're delegating things to each other, Like we know that's something if Matt's delegating something to me, it's something I got to do, right? Like it's very concise,
Absolutely.
it's very clear. And if I'm delegating something to Matt, he knows like that's something I got to do.
Right.
And it takes a while to develop that relationship, I think, with your team, and even further develop that trust, even if it's already there to go. I know when so-and-so says, like, this is your task, that it was carved out event essentially for me, and that there's no one else that has the cycles right now to do this. So you get, and that's the other thing, too, when you delegate is you got to know everyone's workloads, right? And sometimes I think Matt and I both won't delegate something to either each other or another team member knowing what's on their plate.
That's right.
And that requires a lot of communication.
Yeah.
Right.
And to your point, I think the foundation of the rest of these items is having the right person with the right attitude and the right aptitude to do the rest of these. Well, right? that's the cornerstone. Is the
good
right
to great
person.
lesson in it, right? You just got to have the right leaders, right? Like we know a couple weeks before Black Hat, we're not delegating anything to Sam. I mean, unless it's really Black Hat related, like I'm not delegating anything to Sam right now, like because I know what her workload is.
Yep.
I've done that. Matt's done that. We've prepped for events before. We know how much work it is. So same thing with the production guys. On Thursday night when I know they've got to publish 3 shows, I'm not putting anything else on top of them because I know how much work that is, right?
Right. And it's that communication piece. A lot of these other pieces are communication focused, checkpoints and milestones, and that communication to make sure that the tasks that have been delegated down are moving forward, right? It's part of our normal meeting sequence here. Every Monday morning, the sales meeting. Joe, where are you on sales? Tuesdays, it's operations. Where are we with ops and onboarding and all the other things, right? There's a bunch of delegated tasks that have to be summarized. Fridays at the end of the week, it's Paul and I kind of sitting down, making sure all the business aspects are going. But those are there for us to have those checkpoints on a weekly basis to continue to track all those tasks that have been delegated out, and we know that we're still accomplishing our goals.
Yeah. Well, I think having frank conversations about priority is super important. I think I underestimated in the past how important that was. That if everyone's on the same page with priority level, like things are getting done. And sure, there's lots of things we'd all like to get done, but when we collectively agree and have a discussion about it, it may even be an argument, and that's totally fine. No one's feelings are hurt. Let's talk about it. But at the end of the day, we agree. This is the direction. This is the strategy. This is the priority, right? And I think some good to great too as well, where they talked about some companies there'd be meetings, they get really heated, but everyone walked out going, glad we had the discussion, we got a direction. Right. It is what it is now. 100%. Let's move forward.
And you hit a good point earlier, Matt, about your swim lanes, right? And I think clarity and the responsibility and accountability of what your role entails is huge across the entire organization. It's huge to know because at the end of the day, that gives you the ability to say, hey, listen, Paul, I know this is something that I typically will run with, but I'm swamped. We need to divide and conquer. Can you take this for me? Right? It allows you to have that conversation because in many instances, you'll see folks say, that's something that you always do. Why are you kicking it down kicking the can down the road to me? But you can have that good conversation where you're saying, listen, this is something I typically run with, but I want to hand it over to you because number one, I'm swamped or this is a priority item. And then it shows a trust factor too, because you're taking something that you're normally responsible for or accountable for, and you're starting to give that level of responsibility and accountability to your team.
We're doing that with the staging site right now, Paul.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great example. Well, mostly because neither of us want to mess with the templating and themes in WordPress. So
right.
But we have someone on, it's a contractor that's what he likes to do and he's good at it. So Matt and I'll do. We've done not all, but we've done other parts of the heavy lifting, right? I've written the application to publish. Matt's going in and working with the data and recategorizing everything. It's all stuff that we're good at is what we assign.
And at the end of the day, another one of these points was, encourage new and creative ways for the team members to accomplish their goals. I look at that as the innovative mindset. Foster innovation within the team because team members want to contribute. They want to add value. They want to have positive impacts. Enable them to do that. Allow them to be innovative, right? And innovate for the organization because they may have a different view than we have. And they could bring something to the table that could just completely innovate the process or the organization or...
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with a bunch of manual tasks. I mean, one of the things Paul and I have been doing a lot this year is just process improvement. And that process improvement leads to some level of automation, right?
Right.
But it's those employees that are in the trenches that are doing things on a day-to-day basis go, man, if we just did it this way, I could lighten my load 25% and then I could take on more stuff, or whatever that innovation comes from. It's so important to kind of bring that back up and look at it and decide how do we move some of this stuff forward. For sure. My next article, there's no shame in working on vacation.
Sure, something I'm really good at.
Right?
Well, I mean, look, me too, by the way. I get in trouble for it sometimes. But, a lot of people think vacation is disconnect. And there are times when you have to disconnect. When Lauren and I went to Europe for our 25th wedding anniversary, I kind of disconnected, right? I didn't do too much work because that was one of those trips where you just, like, you have to. But then when we went to Florida for my niece's wedding, we were there. We had all the kids down there. I was doing some work, right? We had some webcasts. We had some other stuff. And so if you kind of lay that out in advance and you kind of know that's going to come, then I think it's okay. And Paul, you do the same thing with Shannon, because I've seen you come in during vacation.
Yeah, it happens. And, as long as you got to be forthcoming. You don't want to be like in the middle of vacation and be like, oh, by the way, I have to go to work now, right?
That's right.
That's bad.
I mean, one of the things I try to do is I try to look at the anatomy of my vacation. What does it entail, right? So what is this going to be? Is it going to be a trip to Disneyland with the kids and, all morning long we're going to be running at 110 miles an hour, and then we're going to go stop somewhere for lunch and then maybe go back to the hotel and take a break? I try to weave those type of things in. I look at the type of vacation.
It's bi-directional too. You communicate to your team at work and your team at home
100%.
And set the expectations accordingly.
And basically I'll say, listen, in the morning hours while everybody's getting ready, I'm available. I'm going to jump on. I'm going to check emails. I'll take some phone calls. But from 9 to noon, you're not going to find me. Right? I'm going to be dead silent. So it's just it's knowing the anatomy, because every vacation is going to be different, right? So it's knowing that anatomy.
I was like, I'm around from 5 a.m. to about 8 a.m. and then after that, probably not again until 10 p.m.
Right. Right. But you need to be able to do that and communicate it, because then now you can proactively jump in and take a look at things and handle any situations that are happening while still keeping that sanity of your family vacation.
Absolutely. This last article I brought in only because more to cover the trend of what's going on. So Bill Pappas has been named the EVP and head of global technology for MetLife. He's coming on. Former CIO over at Bank of America, really to use technology to innovate the insurance business. Okay, that's interesting. But the reason I brought this article in is because we're starting to see a trend, a shift in the C-level executive roles moving forward, right? If you think about the CIO, traditionally was about IT operations. And as we move into the cloud and we start to see operations shift a little bit to DevOps and some other things, I've always asked this question of what's the future role of the CIO in an organization? Therefore, what's the future role of the CISO in the organization? Because a lot of CISOs still report to the CIO. The trend I'm starting to see is more of the chief technology officer, in this case, a global technology executive, where they're bringing in these technology folks that are really looking at how to use technology to innovate. And then I think security plays a role somewhere in this new paradigm. And so I brought this article in just for other CISOs to kind of see what's happening in the other roles that are going to shape, I think, the future of security.
Yeah, being that biased CISO who reports to the CEO, I say security plays a role in every piece of this, every ounce of the technology, the process, the operational excellence, the customer experience. I think it peanut butters across it all.
And I wish
peanut butter.
Oh, I love peanut butter.
and I wish other CISOs were in the position you were in, Jason, because I think there it is right. But I still see a lot of CISOs rolling into old traditional CIO roles and don't have that ability to span broader.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I took a look at is basically what that role's requirements were, right? I went through and actually I found an old posting for that role. And it literally was outlined: customer experience, fostering a culture of innovation, and embracing operational excellence. Those were the three main criteria for that global role. And I actually loved it, right? Because number one, operational excellence is making sure the processes are in place. The good streamlined processes, right? And then the focus on innovation on top of that, ultimately for the driver of the customer experience.
No, I agree. And that's the trend we're seeing is you're going to see more of these types of roles really focused on the customer and improving the customer experience. And that's going to lead to operational changes, technology changes, et cetera. And as security folks, we just need to know what's going on.
Right. And to be honest with you, embedded at each one of those levels, embedded at the operational excellence process side, because you could be creating processes that could bring liability or risk to the organization, right? From the innovation side, because you want to be part of that technical innovation conversation up front. And then the customer experience. You could be creating something within that, that innovative application or system or whatever you're building that could expose the customer, right? And create a risk to the customer side.
Right. Yep, agreed. Gentlemen, always a pleasure. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Next week is Labor Day, so we'll see you in 2 weeks on Business Security Weekly.